My child was just diagnosed with mild autism. He's 3. My question is, what do we do now? What is our next steps? How do we find therapies? What is ABA? I took it all on from the parent perspective, but I promised that we would get an expert perspective.
Sure.
I also would like to...
Research expert. You're the parenting expert.
Well, I'm not an expert. I'm a parent. We stop there because otherwise, I don't want to get into any kind of trouble, because the minute I think I know what I'm talking about, my child proves me wrong. But in any case, they've also given us some more information about where they live, that they are in the state of Illinois, outside of St. Louis. They've been through some early intervention for speech, then diagnosed in May, but left with a bunch of questions, which to me, we know this happens. I think it's unconscionable that people could say autism and say, nice talking to you, and not help.
Right.
But we take what we can. They're concerned about, they've been turned over to the local school system and what they do now. Right. So where would you like to start? I'll make room.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say my heart goes out to you. It's going to be a really tough time, for them. But I do want to say it only gets better from here.
Yep.
The diagnosis is probably one of the most challenging moments you'll face in your entire life as a parent, right? But it does get better. There are things that can be done. There is hope. And there is real hope for real progress and real change. So that's the first thing, most important thing to keep in mind. And then the next thing is the research is very clear on what works the best. And that is 30 to 40 hours of one-to-one ABA-based treatment for at least a year, ideally 2 to 3 years, maybe more. Mm-hmm. And it's real clear. There's many, many studies published in legitimate scientific peer-reviewed journals that demonstrate that this particular treatment model is what produces robust effects. In other words, it works. Your child will learn. Your child will make progress. Challenging behaviors will decrease. Skills will increase. Independence will increase. Happiness will increase.
Yeah, for everybody.
Right. And all kids are capable of learning, and all kids can make progress. So that's the number one thing. Now, if they're in the St. Louis area, it sounds like more or less. We don't provide services there, but I can, if they, give us their contact information, I can put them in touch with some folks in that area.
Okay.
John Guercio is one guy in particular. He's very active in the ABA community in the St. Louis area. If he doesn't provide the particular services that she needs, he certainly would know who to put her in touch with. So I would like to connect them.
Okay.
He's a great guy. So that's the first step, is finding intensive services. Now, another thing to keep in mind is, depending on who you talk to, they'll tell you things like, well, okay, put your kid in this daycare or this preschool or this early intervention center or this whatever program. That's going to take about 20 hours a week of their time. Then maybe do another 5 hours of this other therapy, then another 5 hours of this other therapy, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, throw all the ingredients in together, and now the kid's day is full. And all of those different ingredients are supposed to help the kid, right?
Right.
Or at least that's the intention. But when research has actually examined that model, which they call it an eclectic model, which means a little bit of everything all thrown together, it hasn't shown that it actually produces gains. Almost all of the studies that have evaluated that model have shown that kids either stay flat or actually sometimes decrease or regress in their skill development. So I would say, keep an eye out for that. That is the model that's going to be recommended to 99% of parents out there, and that model is not supported by research. What is supported by research is 30 or more hours per week of one-on-one, high-quality ABA-based intervention. It doesn't matter if it happens in the home, or in a preschool, or a clinic, or a center-based program, or a public school, but it has to be implemented by people who are experts, experts in ABA, and are being trained and supervised by master's-level expert clinicians who have years of experience.
Which means you have to have someone called a BCBA working on the case, a board-certified behavior analyst.
Ideally, yeah.
And we've talked before about what are the hallmarks of when you're getting great ABA, and so they can search that topic on YouTube, because we've done other shows with you about that. But you're going to help them to speed up that process by hooking them up with somebody who's going to steer them in a direction that they're going to get hooked up with.
That's right. And through that process, they're probably going to talk to a lot of different people who say, yeah, by the way, I do this, ABA treatment. And think of it as an interview process. They should be interviewing these different providers saying, what are you going to offer my child? How are you going to evaluate whether or not what you're doing actually works?
Yeah.
How are you going to be responsible for effectiveness? And how are you going to be accountable for actually showing that it works?
Yeah.
And they should be able to walk you through that process, and they should have very clearly outlined procedures for demonstrating effectiveness. And we all know kids in good quality ABA programs learn every day. So every single week there should be something new that your kid can do this week that he couldn't do last week, that he learned in the ABA program.
And that's a big hallmark of whether it's a quality ABA provider. Okay, a couple of things that I want to add to the mix that she wrote in and said, he has no speech. Now, I'm assuming that means that he is not speaking, not that he has no speech services. So if I'm wrong, please write in, because I'm watching what you say. But one of the things that jumped out at me right away is that they said that the diagnosis is mild autism. And what I'm hearing a lot from the parents is that people are saying mild autism, and then they're going to continue on along. Even though the child is 3, they say, well, the child has mild autism, which means you don't need that 30 hours.
Right. And
what would you say to that?
That's completely incorrect and unsupported by research. There's actually very little, the truth is there's very little research that has examined the effects of ABA or any other interventions separately for children who are more severely affected versus less severely affected by autism. There's very little research that has done that. But in the one study done by Tris Smith, who did specifically look at that, they actually found the strongest results in the kids who are the most mildly affected. So it's the opposite of sort of common knowledge, which is, oh, he's mild, so he doesn't need much help. The opposite has actually been shown in research, is that the kids who are most mildly affected actually do the best from 30 to 40 hours a week.
Okay, so don't, anyone out there who's listening, don't accept that half prescription that we keep hearing about, people saying, oh, well, they prescribed 10 hours of ABA or 15 hours of ABA. If a child is 3 or 4, we really want them to be in that. I was saying 25 to 40, but you really think 30 to 40.
Yeah, and sometimes people define intensive as 25 hours per week, sometimes 30. The original study was 40, but really the important point here is every moment that a child is in a good quality ABA program is an opportunity for them to learn, right? And how do you get good at something? Practice, lots of practice. So just like if you want to learn a new language, you go to that country where all they do is speak that language, because that means you're practicing 24 hours a day, right?
Immersive.
It's immersive. Same thing with an ABA program.